Hello, everybody. Thank you again for your participation to the 2021 Shine Conference. My name is Annie. I'm a nursing practice specialist here at Johns Hopkins Bayview in the perioperative services. We are glad to have Heather Watson, our nurse scientist for GHHS, to talk about submitting for IRB. And it's a daunting process, but Heather is going to clarify a lot of things for us and make it doable. Hello, Heather. Could you please introduce yourself?
It's good to see you again for part 2 of our presentation series. Thank you for coming to talk to me about the IRB. I get a lot of questions about IRB, and sort of people get a little bit scared about the next steps. And once they decide to do a project, what do they do next? And so I thought maybe today we could talk about some things like questions you might want to consider, or types of applications, forms you would want to submit, and sort of some realistic expectations around an IRB submission.
That's right. A lot of the question is like, what should I do, or what should I consider to submit when I'm ready to submit to IRB?
Yeah, so some of the questions people should really think about, when they decide that they have a project they want to work on, whether it's a quality improvement project they plan on submitting to the IRB, or it's an actual research study they plan on submitting, or even a team member of, and they're working together to submit. You want to think about what kind of application you are interested in submitting. So is it research? Is it QI? What are the differences between those things? What kind of stakeholders do you need to engage with? So for example, our PFACs, our patient family advocacy groups, are really wonderful partners. Sometimes they can think about things that we forget about. Also, obviously, the people you work with, or your manager, your director, the leadership, so that you have, you have support, or that they want you to do the project where you are. And have you taken the required training? In our other series, IRB 101, we talked about some of those training requirements that you need. And I should say, if you haven't seen IRB 101 and you're watching this one, you should probably go back and watch our IRB 101. That way people know sort of what are their starting places. And then also the other thing to consider is if you've had a pre-scientific review. As a registered nurse, if you're the principal investigator on a study, we like for you to submit it to get a pre-scientific review, which is essentially another pair of eyes on your protocol to make sure that you've sort of crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, because sometimes people just don't know what they might be missing.
Thank you. Those are really important key topics that needs to be considered prior to submitting forms to the IRB. So I think, Laura, you were going to talk about next is it about what type of application should we submit to IRB?
So it depends on if you're going to do a research study or a quality improvement study. So sort of your step one is you need to go to the IRB website and set up an account and log in so that it can find you as a person. So if you go to IRB to JHM, IRB, that it'll walk you right through everything that you need to do. So once you decide you're going to create an application, it'll take you to a page that looks like this, and you're going to be choosing yourself as a principal investigator. And whether it's quality improvement or research is a question that you get asked in this application process. If it's a research study, it's a little bit longer of an application process because there's more things to consider. If it's quality improvement, it's a little bit shorter of an application process. Both of them have different forms that you would need to submit in addition to kind of moving through this electronic process and answering questions like, who's on my study team? And what's the basic question I'm looking to answer here? So it'll ask you a few things like that. And then in addition to that, you would need to upload some forms that discuss your protocol in depth.
That looks like doable enough. So are there any specific forms that you mentioned that are required to be submitted?
I can talk about a few of them because, I mean, we could probably spend hours talking about the forms, but I don't think anybody wants us to do that, Annie. So I think the key form that most people spend the most time on are either the E-Form A, which is for a research study, or the E-Form Q, which would be for quality improvement. Now, those forms are available, again, at the IRB website, or they're available via links on the Center for Nursing Inquiry website. So each of those forms asks a series of questions or has a series of things that you need to fill out. Like, for example, your background of the study that you're doing, kind of the objectives or the aims, what you plan on doing to recruit people. So that's an important part of it. Like if you want to recruit nurses to participate in an interview, for example, that your recruitment strategy might be like that you're going to send emails out to everybody in your department and ask them. So you would need to submit like an email script that says exactly what you're going to say. Because again, the IRB is designed to protect human subjects research. So they don't want any coercion in place. They want to make sure that you're going to do exactly what you say you're going to do, and you're not going to go outside those bounds. So the E-Form A and the E-Form Q are outline your plan, your protocol, what you're going to do with the information when you have it. So a little bit about like, how am I going to analyze all of this interview data? Or if I do a survey, what am I going to do with that information once I have it? The other thing is, if you're doing human subjects research, oftentimes you're going to need consent. So consent form is something that you would need to fill out. And again, these templates are all available for you online. And also the IRB staff are really accessible for consents because they want you to get it right. A risk tier calculator is something that people have to do. It kind of explains if you're handling any kind of data, are you handling high risk data? Is it going external to the Johns Hopkins institutions? That puts it at a higher risk category, or there's lower risk categories, and that triggers different kinds of review processes within the IRB, and obviously letters of support. So we always like to know that people have support for the project work that they're doing and that they have approval to use those resources. And if you were using a survey, or you were using a new pain flow sheet or a new falls flow sheet, which we know wouldn't happen. But if you were, those would be instruments you would want to upload because they want to, again, see what it is that you're actually going to be using. So those are just an example of some of the major forms you would want to upload. But sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you may need a few more.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be very specific to make sure that those forms and consents are actually completed the right way. If I have issues and I can't really complete them, will I have the resource or support to complete them the right way? And can that be offered by the Center of Nursing Inquiry?
Absolutely. At the Center for Nursing Inquiry, we definitely do a lot of consultation around project work that people are putting in. So if people have questions, they can come to us and we can help walk them through it. And if for some reason you were unable to get a hold of us, then again, the IRB folks, the staff at the IRB are actually pretty friendly, and they would rather you submit a consent form that's done right than one that's done wrong, because then they need to send it back to you and make corrections. So they are also there to help.
Okay, very good. So what else can we expect after the completion of all the forms that's required by IRB?
That's a great question. So once you have everything together, you've gone through the electronic E-Form A and the electronic IRB application process, and you've clicked the submit button.
Yay.
Yay, right? You've done all this hard work. And
Right.
you're like, woo, finally.
Right.
Then the IRB, this is where the IRB takes over and they start to review your proposal, your protocol, what it is that you have decided you'd like to work on. Now, if you're submitting a quality improvement project and everything looks fantastic, the IRB is going to acknowledge it. It's not going to get an approval because it's non-human subjects research, but it will get an acknowledgement and it'll get an IRB number attached to it. And that is really nice when you go to publish your results because it lends it some strength. And so that's great. If it's a research study and everything is perfect, you'll get an approval for it. And then usually they ask you like the amount of time you think you're going to need to complete it. And then they'll possibly ask you to send them updates. So if you put in a project and you think it's going to take 3 years to finish, then every year they might ask you, so how's it going? Give us an update. And that's pretty typical. Or they may ask you for revisions, which is really not uncommon. Even the most experienced principal investigators will sometimes get their applications kicked back to them and asked to revise some things. So if that happens to you, don't feel disheartened at all because it happens to almost everybody. And a lot of times it's just like a new regulation came out and you didn't know about it. So you have to just change a couple of things. Or maybe you forgot to include the consent. You just absentmindedly forgot to upload it. They'll ask you to do those kinds of things. So revisions are not uncommon. But as soon as you get those revisions requested to you, just act on it as soon as possible. And if you have questions, again, you can always reach out to them and just be patient because the IRB takes time. We are all involved in research heavy institutions where a lot of people are coming in and looking at our patient populations, but also looking at us as healthcare workers, right? So we have a lot of research to process through the IRB. And so it does take some time. So it's realistic for people, if they've done everything really well, to think that it's going to take about a month or so. So do keep that in mind that if you've submitted, you're not going to get a call back tomorrow saying, great, good, you're ready to go. It's probably going to be some time. So plan for that when you're thinking about starting project work too.
So you did put emphasis and it does take time. So just on my novice, thinking here, how long does it take for a research project or a QI project from start to finish? Just a question.
Oh, yeah. That's an outstanding question, Annie. I think it depends on how much time somebody has to dedicate to it, realistically. But most research projects take a minimum of 2 years.
2 years.
That's kind of once you start the research. So when you talk about from development all the way to manuscript, it's generally like 4 years. For quality improvement, it tends to be a little bit less because they're usually quality improvement projects are, very time bound that are usually implemented over a shorter period of time. So the results are generated a little bit faster. And because you're not getting consent for human subjects research, the process is a little bit faster. So a good quality improvement project from start to finish is probably about a year. And research can be anywhere from 3 years to 10 years. Some people do very long longitudinal studies, but for nurses, for our nurses that are probably watching this, if they really wanted to do a research project around, say, changing their orientation process, for example, on their unit, and they wanted to do some pre and post surveying of their nurses and then implement a newly designed process. Once they had it all developed and then they implemented over a year or 6 months, and it could take 2 years. Like I said, if they're very motivated and they reach out for help when they need it, there's no reason to think that it'll take forever, but it is research. And so it does take a little bit of time.
Yeah, so thank you. Those are very insightful information about the IRB process, which for us novice nurses, it's very daunting when you start talking about IRB process and IRB approval. But is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Heather, on the IRB process to summarize this?
Yeah, I think I would just reiterate that the IRB wants you to be successful, so reach out to them for help. We want successful research to happen out of Hopkins. We want successful nursing research, so please reach out to the Center for Nursing Inquiry. It's a great learning process to own your own practice and drive your own practice changes, so it's really exciting. So any questions anybody ever has, they can reach out to the Center for Nursing Inquiry. Or you can always reach out to me personally, Heather Watson, and I'm happy to always answer inquiry questions about research, QI, or EBP.
Very good. Well, thank you, Heather. This has been a very informative topic on IRB process and IRB approval. So I appreciate also everybody who was able to attend this talk with Heather. So we'll see you on the next topic.
Thank you so much, Annie, and I hope everybody's having a great Shine conference.
Okay.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.